Hi, welcome back. In today's video I want to explain taxes here in Brazil. Well, at least try to explain, because some of it is a bit complicated. So I'm going to talk about income tax, capital gain tax, tax on products, importation tax, and also taxes on businesses. And then I'll compare it against some other countries like Sweden, the UK, and the US as well, just so you can get a good feel of how the taxes in Brazil compare to other countries. And the reason why I'm doing this video now is because myself and most other Brazilians, we're filling out the annual tax return, which is due in by the end of May. So the tax year for Brazil runs from the 1st of January to the 31st of December, and then you have a few months until the end of May to actually submit that tax return. Okay, so let's start off by talking about income tax. So income tax in Brazil is progressive. So it has various thresholds, and as you earn more, you have to pay a higher rate of tax, which is similar to most countries in the world. As you can see here, this ranges from 0%, so you've got an exempt amount, all the way to 27.5%. So that's the maximum rate on income. And actually, this compares favorably to many other countries. So I mean, for example, in Sweden, the top tax rate is over 50%. In the UK, it's 45%. And in the US, the federal income tax rate is up to 37%. But then you also have to pay some local and state taxes, which raises that above 37%. So just looking at it like this, very simply, income tax rate in Brazil is lower than a lot of countries. But it's not as simple as that, because you can see the thresholds are quite low. So you reach this max rate of 27.5% quite quickly. So you have an exempt amount of 2,259 reais per month. This is per month. So that's like $400. So you can earn roughly $5,000 per year, and you don't pay any tax on it. And then the next rate is 7.5%, all the way up to 27.5%. And you start paying 27.5% when you earn 4,600 reais per month, which is $900. So then if you look annually, so that's like $11,000. So I mean, if you earn more than $11,000 per year, you're already starting to pay 27.5%. So that threshold is a lot lower than a lot of the other countries. So I know, for example, in the US, up to $15,000, you only pay 10%. While here, above $11,000, and you're already paying 27.5%. So you have to take that into consideration as well. So it kind of depends how much you earn. So if you're someone that earns a lot of money, then yes, you'll pay less tax here in Brazil. But for someone who earns a couple of $1,000s per month, you actually end up paying more tax here in Brazil than you did in the country that you came from. It all depends on what the income tax bands are like in your country. And some other important things to mention about income tax. So if the tax authorities classify you as resident in the country, which there's certain rules, but basically if you're living here in Brazil and you plan to live here for the foreseeable future, you'll be classified as resident. If you've got a temporary visa and you've got a job, then you're classified as resident. So they've got various rules. So if you're classified as resident in Brazil, then you pay Brazilian income tax on your Brazilian income and also on your overseas income. So for example, I have income here in Brazil, but also back in Sweden, and I pay Brazilian income tax on all of it. Now I also pay Swedish tax on my Swedish income, but I don't pay double the amount of tax. So there's a double taxation agreement between the two countries, and so I pay tax in Sweden, but then I'm able to deduct that tax that I've paid from my Brazilian taxes. So in the end, there's no double tax impact on me. Now, whether you can do this all depends on whether Brazil has a double taxation agreement with your country that you come from. But in most cases, you're able to do this deduction and you're not going to pay double taxes. And then the Brazilian tax authorities, so that's called Receita Federal, they also allow you to do some deductions of your income. These deductions help you reduce your tax payments. So this includes charitable donations, medical expenses, your medical insurance costs, dentist costs. You can also deduct some of your children's school fees if they go to a private school. Not all of it, just a certain amount. You can even deduct some of the cost of having a maid if you have one. We don't. So there's various deductions that you can do which will reduce your tax. And in terms of filing and paying your taxes, obviously if you have a normal job and the company you work for, they take part of your salary and pay taxes each month to Receita Federal. But if you're like me, so I get rental income, dividend income, I trade with shares, then I have to do a tax return every month, and that's super annoying. So this tax return is called Carni Leon. So here I have to fill out how much income I get, then that will then calculate how much tax I have to pay, and I have to pay that every month. The main thing is that with these monthly tax returns, you can't deduct certain things. You can't deduct medical expenses or the school fees for your child. No, you can only do those deductions on your annual tax return. So the result is that you pay more tax each month than you need to, because you can't make these deductions. With the annual tax return, which I'm doing now, I do another calculation, include these deductions, and then the end result is the annual tax return shows a lower tax amount than what I've paid each month, and so then I have to request a refund from the tax authorities. And that can take months to receive. Obviously, that's not the case for everyone. If they've got a normal job or something, then that's not usually the case. But that does happen for a lot of people. And then just finally some other things. So dividends from Brazilian companies are tax exempt. You don't pay any tax on dividends. But dividends from overseas companies, you do pay income tax on. And then also interest on saving accounts and stuff are also tax exempt. Okay, so that was a basic explanation of income tax. The next one is capital gains. So that's when you sell your house, sell shares, sell crypto, you make a gain and you have to pay tax on that. So capital gains tax here in Brazil, it's 15% on a gain up to 5 million reais. So up to $1 million of a gain, you pay 15%. And if you make a gain of above $1 million, above 5 million reais, then you pay a higher rate, which goes up to 22.5%. But in most situations, you're making a gain of less than $1 million, then you pay 15%. And that rate, again, compares favorably to a lot of countries. For example, in Sweden, it's 30%. In the US, it's 20%. In the UK, it's between 10 and 20, depending on how much you earn. So the rate in Brazil is, more or less the same or slightly lower compared to many other countries. And then they have certain exemptions as well. So one of them is that if you sell shares for less than 20,000 reais per month, so 20,000 reais is roughly $4,000. Now that isn't the gain, that's the sale proceeds. So if you sell shares for less than $4,000 per month, then you don't pay any capital gains tax. And if you sell other things, so like crypto, a car, and other things, you can sell them for up to 35,000 reais per month and not pay any tax. The 35,000 reais is about $7,000. So these exemptions are very good. I can sell shares for $4,000 and crypto for $7,000 per month and not pay any tax at all. However, the Brazilian government has made some changes and are planning to implement more changes, which might reduce that exemption to zero. So they've already voted and implemented one rule, which is that if you sell overseas shares or crypto held overseas, then these exemptions don't apply and you have to pay 15% straight away. So there's no exemption at all. This is very new and they're going to issue more guidance because there's lots of questions about, well, okay, so I've got crypto overseas, but then you send that crypto to an exchange here in Brazil and then sell it here in Brazil. How does that work? Which law applies here? Do I get the exemption or not because I'm selling here in Brazil? So there's lots of confusion and questions and stuff. And then also capital gains on houses as well. So if you sell a house for less than 440,000 reais, so that's $87,000, then you don't pay any capital gains tax. If you sell for more than that, you can still reduce it down depending on how long you've had the house. There's various rules. So usually you don't pay 15% on the gain on your property. Usually it's lower than that. And then there are more rules, specific rules, but that's kind of the general gist of it. Okay, and then the next tax is tax on products. And actually here, taxes can be a lot higher in Brazil than other countries. So Brazil has various sales taxes or taxes on consumption. So they have ICMS, they have IPI, they have ISS, they have PIS, they have COFINS. So they've got various taxes, and these all apply to sales and the products. And the rates for each of these depends on the product. So for example, ICMS ranges from usually between 15 and 25%. IPI can range from 0 to like 300%. ISS is usually between 2 and 5%, and PIS/COFINS is usually around 3%. So you can see here how all these taxes add up to quite a big number. So just to give you an example here, so this website here kind of shows you taxes on products. I mean, I haven't investigated how accurate these numbers are, how they've calculated it, but they give you a few examples. So you can see here, guarda-chuva, umbrella, is at 35%. A watch, relógio, is at 56% tax. Then you've got other products which are lower. So batata is at 11%, beer is at 42%, petrol or gas is at 61%, computer games are at 72%. Seems like the Brazilian government doesn't like computer games. So you can see it's a big range. It all depends on the product. But if you compare it to other countries, so like in Sweden, there's a rate of 25% on most products. In the UK, it's 20%. And in the US, it ranges from 0 to 9%, because it's all set at state and local levels. So you can see here that taxes in Brazil are higher compared to a lot of other countries. Now again, here the Brazilian government is trying to make change, trying to do a tax reform, so they're trying to get rid of a lot of these taxes and simplify things. So they're trying to implement some new ones called CBS, IBS, IS. So the plan is to try and kind of reduce the tax burden on companies, because companies need a big tax department to work out all of these taxes for the products and services. So they just want to try and reduce down the tax burden on companies, and also trying to reduce down a bit the taxes on products. But let's see if that actually happens. And then another tax, which is kind of related to this, is importation tax. So importing products, if that's an individual or a company, then you'll have to pay an importation tax. Now, at the moment, if you import something which costs less than $50, then you don't have to pay any importation tax. But if you import something which is above $50, then you have to pay 60% importation tax. And I think that's up to like $3,000. And that makes kind of buying things overseas and getting things sent to you very expensive. But then also the other aspect is companies importing products and sell here in Brazil, they also have to pay importation tax. Usually that ranges between 0 and 35%. But then also the other taxes that I mentioned earlier, so this is ICMS, IPI, PIS/COFINS, they also change and increase and can increase. So in total, the actual taxes that companies pay to import products can be super high. And we're talking like over 100% in some cases. So in general, imported products here in Brazil can be super expensive, and partly the reason is because of these high taxes that are applied to imported products. Obviously there are other reasons as well. It costs a lot to send products all the way to Brazil, and then they've got port fees and all of that. I tend to buy products that have made in Brazil, which are usually less expensive, than products that are being imported. But sometimes you don't have a choice and you have to buy these imported products at inflated prices. Obviously, one way is that you buy loads of things when you're overseas and bring it back to Brazil. And there's a limit at the moment of $1,000 that you can bring back without having to declare it and pay any tax on it. Okay, and then finally you've got taxes on businesses. And again, this can be pretty complicated depending on the size of the business. So there are three ways of businesses paying tax. The first one is called Simples Nacional. The next one is called Lucro Presumido. And the last one is Lucro Real. And so the first one, Simples Nacional, is for the smaller businesses. So if a business makes up to 4.8 million reais in revenues per year, so that's about $1 million, then they can use Simples Nacional. And the point of this is to try and make it as simple as possible for the business. So you just pay one rate of tax instead of having to do various tax calculations, which the bigger businesses have to do. And so the tax rate varies depending on what type of business you have, and the range is 4% up to 33%. But this is the percentage of revenue, not profit. But for me, it's very strange. Say smaller businesses, they have to pay taxes even when they make a loss. But the benefit is you don't have to pay an accountant lots of money to make lots of tax calculations. You just take your revenue and apply this rate. And then another way of paying tax is lucro presumido. So that's for bigger businesses. So that's for businesses up to 78 million reais. So that's about $16 million. Now here again, it's a bit simplified. So the tax authority, Receita Federal, they estimate how much profit the company makes based on the revenue, and then the company pays tax on that estimated profit. And the two taxes the company has to pay is the IRPJ and the CSLL. The first one ranges from 15 and 25%, and the second one, the CSLL, is around 9%. But this is based on the estimated profit. So again, companies can make a loss and still have to pay tax. And then the final one is lucro real. So this is for really big businesses, so businesses that make revenue over 78 million reais. And in this one, the company actually calculates its own profit, and then the company pays this IRPJ and the CSLL, which is similar rate to the lucro presumido. Those are the three ways that companies can pay tax here in Brazil. Obviously, these companies also pay all of these sales taxes that I mentioned earlier. Now, the companies that do Simples Nacional don't pay these, but the companies that do this lucro presumido, lucro real, they have to calculate all these sales taxes as well. So in general, the tax burden is pretty high for Brazilian businesses. If you compare it to other countries, so in Sweden, for example, the corporation tax rate is 20%. In the USA, the federal corporation tax is 21%, but then you've got local taxes as well, which increases it further. In the UK, it's between 19 and 25%. So in general, the tax burden on Brazilian businesses can be higher than a lot of other countries. Obviously, I'm simplifying the taxes a lot. I mean, with tax in most countries, there's lots of small rules and exemptions and stuff, which I haven't gone into. But in general, this is kind of taxes in Brazil. Okay, so I hope you found this video useful. Please subscribe, leave a like. If you've got any questions or anything, leave in the commentary below. So thanks for watching. Until next time.